Sweden is entering a moment unlike anything in its modern defense industrial history. After decades of positioning the Gripen as a nimble, affordable, and politically flexible alternative to heavyweight American and European fighters, Stockholm now finds itself on the verge of what could become the largest fighter export deal it has ever attempted. Ukraine's ongoing negotiations for a fleet potentially reaching 100 to 150 aircraft have created a strategic window that elevates the Gripen from a niche export product to a platform capable of shaping the future of European air power. Understanding why this opportunity has emerged requires examining not only the aircraft itself, but also the geopolitical environment, the industrial shifts underway in Northern Europe, and the operational logic driving Ukraine toward a distinctly Nordic solution. The Gripen was designed from the start to be an export-ready fighter. Unlike many fourth-generation fighters that evolved through layers of upgrades and compromises, the Gripen was conceived as a wartime aircraft for a country expecting to fight from narrow roads, frozen runways, and dispersed bases. Sweden's defense requirements forged an aircraft that operates with minimal ground crew, refuels and rearms in minutes, and integrates seamlessly with Western weapons without becoming dependent on any single supplier's export restrictions. That design philosophy resonates strongly with states that face high-intensity threats but lack the budget or infrastructure to maintain large, complex air bases or sustain fighters with expensive maintenance requirements. It is also one of the reasons Ukraine views the Gripen as a viable tool for creating a more survivable, distributed air power model under constant missile pressure. From the perspective of wartime utility, the Gripen offers several advantages that go beyond brochure specifications. Its ability to take off from short sections of highway or secondary runways gives Ukraine more options for dispersing its air assets, making it harder for Russian missile and drone strikes to neutralize entire squadrons on the ground. Its maintenance footprint is far smaller than that of the United States-made F-16, and its operating cost is significantly lower, which matters immensely for a country expecting to sustain prolonged airborne operations with limited resources. The integration of European missiles such as the Meteor and the Iris-T offers Ukraine a powerful beyond-visual range capability without requiring deep dependence on United States export approvals. For a state that needs immediate combat power but also long-term autonomy, this combination is compelling. The potential deal also reflects a broader shift in the security architecture of Northern Europe. Sweden's accession to the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, Finland's parallel transformation, and Norway's long-standing focus on Arctic air dominance have created a de facto Nordic air power network. Gripen, F-35, and airborne early warning platforms are increasingly being treated not as national assets, but as components of a regional mosaic. If Ukraine becomes part of this network through a massive Gripen acquisition, the Nordic security zone will effectively extend deep into Eastern Europe. That would reshape planning assumptions inside the alliance, create new logistics and training corridors, and give Sweden unprecedented strategic influence. For Sweden, the industrial implications are immense. Saab has already expanded production capacity to meet rising interest from European and global customers. A deal of this scale would require accelerated hiring, new tooling, and deeper cooperation with engine suppliers and weapons manufacturers across Europe. Such an expansion would transform Sweden from a boutique producer of advanced fighters into one of the most significant military aviation exporters on the continent. And it would also have political value. Countries with major defense industrial output enjoy greater leverage in alliance diplomacy because they supply not only equipment, but also the technical ecosystems that sustain long-term partnerships. Importantly, the Gripen's appeal is not solely rooted in its affordability and dispersal doctrine. There is a strategic logic behind its growing relevance. The era of inexpensive precision strike has made large, centralized air bases vulnerable to cheap missiles and loitering munitions. The operational model that underpins the Gripen, built on distributed operations and rapid turnarounds, aligns closely with how air forces may need to fight in environments where fixed infrastructure is at constant risk. In that sense, Ukraine's interest is not an anomaly, but a preview of how other states in high-threat regions might assess their future air power needs. The geopolitical environment, however, introduces several constraints. United States policy remains a variable, particularly concerning weapons integration and long-term sustainment. Even if the Gripen avoids direct dependence on United States systems, alliance dynamics ensure Washington's views matter. Funding is another challenge. A deal worth several billions of United States dollars requires a multi-year financial architecture, likely involving the European Union, Nordic states, and international financial institutions. Domestic politics inside Sweden will also shape the pace and scale of any agreement, especially as Stockholm balances the urgency of supporting Ukraine with the need to maintain its own force readiness during a period of heightened Russian activity. Russia's reaction is another factor. The introduction of Gripen E armed with Meteor missiles would significantly alter the air-to-air balance along the eastern flank. Moscow is likely to interpret such a transfer as a major escalation, which could influence its missile targeting patterns, cyber activity, and gray zone operations. That risk does not invalidate the logic of the deal, but it must be understood in the broader context of how European air power deterrence is evolving. If the transaction moves forward, it will have worldwide implications. A large Ukrainian fleet would showcase the Gripen's combat performance in the most demanding operational environment on the continent. That would generate a powerful demonstration effect for states in Asia, the Middle East, and South America looking for non-United States, non-Chinese fighter options. Countries such as Malaysia, the Philippines, and Thailand could revisit their earlier evaluations of the Gripen, especially as rising costs and supply chain delays affect alternatives, like the F-16V and the European Eurofighter Typhoon. A Ukrainian endorsement backed by real combat performance would carry more weight than any marketing campaign Saab has ever mounted. The long-term trajectory of this potential deal demonstrates how quickly the balance of influence can shift when industrial capacity aligns with strategic necessity. Sweden has spent years refining the Gripen's export narrative, but it is the geopolitical shock of the Russia-Ukraine war that has unlocked its most significant opportunity. If Stockholm, Kiev, and European partners can align funding, sustainment, and production timelines, this agreement will mark a turning point not only for Swedish aviation, but for European defense autonomy as a whole. Looking ahead, success will depend on more than signing contracts. It will require a sustainable industrial ramp-up, reliable ammunition and missile supply chains, deep training cooperation, and political discipline inside Sweden to remain committed to long-term support. The Gripen's rising profile is not simply a byproduct of wartime demand. It is evidence that the strategic logic of dispersed, cost-effective, and autonomous air power is gaining ground. Whether the deal reaches its full projected scale or settles at a lower number, Sweden is already positioned as one of the most important air power contributors in the emerging European defense landscape.